Hey everyone, I'm not going to be starting this video with a recap of what's been going on with D&D's OGL. If you don't know already, I'll just offer my congratulations to you on your recovery from that coma. Welcome back. Here's the article with the update from Wizards of the Coast on the Open Game license released yesterday. I released a short yesterday expressing my opinion that the concessions being made in this article were steps in the right direction, but ultimately more steps needed to be taken. If you want more details on that, check out that short. Because today what I'm going to focus on is just how terribly this article is written. There is actual relevant information in this article, but I found it difficult to read. Now, I'm not going to really dive into the examples of gaslighting, probable dishonesty, that the article was edited after publishing. To be clear, I'm not disputing any of those things. I'm just not going to be focusing on them. Here is what I'm going to be focusing on. The D&D community is outraged right now. They are angry. This article is the first public statement from Wizards of the Coast on this matter beyond a tweet a few days ago that promised a public statement. Based on the actual information they were relaying, there was an opportunity here to lessen that outrage, at least to some degree. Yet instead, what they did is add additional things for the community to be outraged about. And they're totally and completely unnecessary things. There was no benefit to Wizards of the Coast or Hasbro from writing the article in this manner. So I assume it's that they obviously picked the wrong person to write it. Someone who must have been just oblivious as to how it would be received. The YouTube channel, Legal Eagle, that I've been a fan of actually for quite a while, has done a video on this whole situation. But there is one conclusion he draws here that I think is a mistake. Here it is.
Look, it's great that they listen to the criticism. I'm sure that the changes will mollify a lot of what people are currently upset about.
Now, personally, I don't think this article is going to be successful at all in mollifying the outrage of the community. If anything, it is adding fuel to the fire. I'm not going to read this whole thing. Instead, I'm just going to focus on a few of what I thought were some of the worst examples of things that should have just been cut out of this article entirely. Here's one. Driving these goals were two simple principles. 1. Our job is to be good stewards of the game. And 2. The OGL exists for the benefit of all fans. Nothing about those principles has wavered for a second. So this is an article responding to community outrage, and it includes an undeserved self-congratulation on their unwavering principles. It does not belong in this response. Did somebody honestly think that an outraged community would respond to this as true information? If they did, they've seriously misjudged the amount of goodwill they're working with right now. Here's another example. However, it's clear from the reaction that we rolled a 1. Normally, a little joke like this is perfectly appropriate in an article communicating with your community, but not when the community is outraged. When the community is outraged, this looks like you making light of their anger. Acknowledging your own mistakes is fine, and probably appropriate in this situation, but you can't phrase it as a joke. In fact, you should make 0 jokes in this kind of article. This is not a laughing matter. Attempts to lighten the mood are not going to be received well. And I'm going to scroll down and show you the one that you've probably heard about, even if you didn't read the article for yourself. You're going to hear people say that they won, and we lost because making your voices heard forced us to change our plans. Those people will only be half right. They won, and so did we. Whomever wrote this, I am sorry. You should never, ever write another article to the D&D community again, whether they are angry with you or not. This statement so obviously shouldn't be in this article. And I don't mean it should have been revised or worded differently. It should have been deleted. Now, I do want to address one misconception I've seen multiple times now. No, this article does not say they aren't deauthorizing the OGL 1.0a. This misconception seems to be from misreading of the following sentence. Content already released under 1.0a will also remain unaffected. So this implies something. What it implies is that content not yet released under 1.0a will be affected. It doesn't outright say it, but it implies it very clearly. Now, here's what's really unfortunate. This article does contain at least some of the things the community wanted to hear. It absolutely could have mollified at least some of the outrage. And in order for it to do that, the person who wrote it needed to learn how to use the backspace key. Like, I can take this article as it's written here and add nothing to it, rephrase nothing in it, And just by using the backspace key a lot, I can turn it into an article that wouldn't have added unnecessary outrage. So here is my free edit that removes everything that shouldn't have been there. An update on the Open Game License. Here is what we are doing. The next OGL will contain the provisions that specify that it covers only content for TTRPGs. It will not contain any royalty structure. It will also not include the license back provision. You will own the content you create. We won't. Any language we put down will be crystal clear and unequivocal on that point. The license back language was intended to protect us and our partners from creators who allege that we steal their work simply because of coincidental similarities. The new OGL will contain provisions to address that risk, but we will do it without a license back and without suggesting we have the rights to the content you create. We won't be able to release the OGL today, but it is coming. We want to always delight fans and create experiences together that everyone loves. We realize we did not do that this time, and we are sorry for that. We'd appreciate a chance to make this right. And that's it. That's all that needed to be there. The author of this article needs an editor. Badly. There's simply no reason for them to add fuel to this inferno. Now, I'd like to take the rest of this video to address some questions I've been getting. So I got a couple questions on my Discord. The first one is from Nestav13. I hope I did that right. Treant Monk, I know you make a lot of characters on D&D Beyond because of its ease of access, but have you or are you planning on canceling your subscription to join the Open D&D, Stop the Sub, and D&D Begone hashtags? And before I even answered that first question, there was a follow-up question from, and I am so sorry, Skurzanek the Madpole. Anyways, they said they wanted to join Staff 13 in that post asking that, and they wanted to elaborate on some points. And I won't read this whole thing, but if you want to pause it and read it, you can. But what they talk about is the call for people to cancel their D&D Beyond subscriptions because Wizards of the Coast actually will listen to that because it hits their bottom line. And it was pointed out that I have a bigger platform than a lot of people for talking about D&D, and therefore, if I want to make it clear that what I thought was presented in the leak was not acceptable, me joining in might have a bigger impact. They say, would it be better to be a passive optimist or a proactive optimist? And then they point out at the end of this question, and I'm going to read this part because it's kind of relevant to what I wrote in response. You have declined to buy Monsters of the Multiverse when it was sold only in a customer-unfriendly bundle of books. That creates a history of you standing your ground on being against what you believe to be anti-consumer, stupid decisions from Wizards of the Coast. I wonder if that will make you more active in the public discourse about the OGL as time goes on, or do you prefer to wait it out, see what happens, and not add to the outcry? So my positions on these things are complicated. They were too complicated for me to fit in a Discord post, so I wrote them in a Google Doc and linked them for anyone on my Discord to read. But I have been seeing comments on my videos asking the same kinds of questions. And if my viewers want to know my positions on these things, I'm about to tell you what they are. If you aren't interested, this video is now over for you. So I wrote this a couple days ago, and this was before the article that I talked about earlier in this video. So a couple things have changed. I'll tell you what they are, but this is basically the future of me in D&D. On January 5th, an article titled Dungeons & Dragons New License Tightens Its Grip on Competition was published on Gizmodo that revealed disturbing details about the new gaming license that Wizards of the Coast intended to force onto third-party D&D content creators. Within the last couple days, we've had a chance to read this agreement for ourselves, and it included several details that are unacceptable. It declares all previous versions of the OGL are no longer authorized for use. It provides Wizards of the Coast the power to terminate or modify the agreement for any reason with 30 days' notice. It provides Wizards of the Coast the power to terminate the agreement without notice if they declare your work does not meet their values and you waive your right to challenge this in court. This last detail was not related in the article, so I didn't relate it in my video on the article, but it is in the agreement. It provides Wizards of the Coast an irrevocable, royalty-free license to use your work for any purpose, even if they terminated your ability to distribute and sell that work. It provides Wizards of the Coast a 20 to 25% royalty on all gross revenue over $750,000 yearly that uses the OGL, even if that work is not profitable. Now, these are the 5 things I think are unacceptable, and what the article yesterday got rid of were these 2. So there are still 3 things that I consider unacceptable about the current agreement. I hope Wizards of the Coast reconsiders those 3 things. Like many content creators, I rushed out a video to go over these details and demand this license be revised to correct these items or scrap it altogether. It was my belief, and it remains my belief, that many third-party content creators will stop publishing D&D compatible products. That makes the game worse for everyone. And what's worse, many of these creators could face financial hardships because of it. Wizards of the Coast put out an article on December 21st that promised, and I quote, relatively little would change for third-party content creators under the new OGL 1.1, an article that obscured all these disturbing changes we discovered after the leak. And I even put out a video covering that article and taking it at face value. It is embarrassing to be deceived. It is humiliating to be deceived and have that deception on video that tens of thousands of viewers watched, and even worse, watch now knowing what we know today. I have to tell you, I have considered removing that video. On the other hand, I don't think I should be denying that I said those things. I believed what they said, and it is crystal clear now that I shouldn't have. So that video remains up, but it is no picnic going to the comments section and seeing the comments that come up these days now that we know the things we know. Like so many in the community, I am angry. I am frustrated. Mostly, though, I'm worried. I'm worried that Wizards of the Coast will end up sabotaging this game that I quit a stable job 2 years ago to cover in YouTube videos. And now I wonder what my future holds for me and my financial responsibilities. I had difficulty getting a mortgage for my home because the banks considered my line of work to be too unstable. I am feeling that instability now like I never have before. If D&D implodes, I don't know what I'll do. It's easy to say do Pathfinder 2 content instead. But it's not that easy. My channel's viability is based on me having a strong understanding of the D&D system and how to optimize within that system. Like everyone in the optimization community, I have continued to learn and grow that skill in the years we've been playing this game. My knowledge of Pathfinder 2 is non-existent, and even if I were to throw all my time into learning, I am years behind the curve, and I don't know when or even if I would catch up. Even if I did, I would have to rebuild the viewer base of the channel. I don't even know if there's enough interest to be viable. Pathfinder 2 just has a way smaller base of players to draw off of. It is possible that someday I'll start making Pathfinder 2 content, but that day is a long, long way off. I just don't have the knowledge or experience I need for those videos. I also firmly believe that most employees of Wizards of the Coast are not responsible for the OGL 1.1 and shouldn't be punished for it. I received a comment on my video about the OGL 1.1 where it was recommending the players flood the 1D&D playtest surveys with protests. To me, that seems like screaming at the store clerk because you think the prices of the store are too high. I said as much in response. A reply I received to that comment was, and I quote, anyone that supports the new GLS, either directly or indirectly, is responsible for supporting it, including the sales clerks. This makes me realize that there is outrage I consider appropriate and outrage I consider inappropriate. In 1966, John Lennon was quoted as saying, Christianity will go. It will vanish and shrink. I needn't argue about that. I'm right and I'll be proved right. We're more popular than Jesus now. Christian groups in the United States were outraged, and honestly, I can understand why. Radio stations stopped playing the Beatles, and many former fans burned their Beatles albums in protest. I support their choice to do that. But if I had been around at the time, there is no way I would have ever been convinced to burn my copy of A Hard Day's Night. Nor is there any way I would stop listening to the things we said today. That wouldn't punish the Beatles. That would punish me. Some children watched in tears as their parents burned their Beatles albums. This is inappropriate outrage. You're punishing the wrong person, and nobody should be forced to express their outrage in the same way as you. I feel very similar in this situation. I consider the OGL 1.1 leaked license to be a travesty. Nevertheless, I'm still having fun playing D&D and making D&D content. I have always held the belief that when a company makes something of good value for me, then I'm willing to part with hard-earned dollars in order to take advantage of that product. However, I will never be such a fanboy that I'll buy product that I consider to be bad value to support a company. This is why when Wizards of the Coast released a gift set including Monsters of the Multiverse, but was not going to allow purchase of Monsters of the Multiverse as a single product for 3 months, I refused to buy it. Yes, I needed the book for content for my channel, but I considered it a dirty trick to get additional dollars from players by forcing you to buy 2 books that you might already own. And I just wasn't going to send them the message that it was okay by giving them that sale. However, when that 3 months passed, I bought the book. That was a purchase I considered to be a reasonable value, and I had no problem with not associating it with my bad feelings about the gift set. There was some pressure to not buy Monsters of the Multiverse ever in protest. I consider that inappropriate outrage. Monsters of the Multiverse is a good book. On January 11th, I saw a video on Indestructiboy's channel suggesting canceling our D&D Beyond subscriptions on January 13th in order to send Wizards of the Coast a message that the community was not going to stand for the OGL 1.1. I understand his reasoning. And if I was sitting on a D&D Beyond subscription that I wasn't making much use of, then that is exactly what I would do. Here's where I circle back to appropriate and inappropriate outrage. I am not just a player of D&D. Making content for D&D is my career. It's my groceries, my mortgage, my daughter's schooling. My build videos all link a D&D Beyond character sheet. Those builds existing require a D&D Beyond subscription. I have friends who rely on me to provide access to the content I've purchased on D&D Beyond. Again, this requires my subscription. For me, canceling my D&D Beyond subscription doesn't just punish Wizards of the Coast. It punishes me, my family, and my friends, and it punishes us far worse than one lost subscription punishes Wizards of the Coast. I consider that inappropriate outrage. Beyond that, I still have fun playing D&D. And I find D&D Beyond to be an effective tool that enhances that experience. I will not burn my A Hard Day's Night album just because Wizards of the Coast thinks they're more popular than Jesus. I fully support anyone who does. But I also support those that don't. I absolutely won't join in an effort to pressure anyone on how they must express their outrage. If Wizards of the Coast goes ahead with this terrible, terrible plan to enact this OGL 1.1, the canceled D&D Beyond subscriptions, they won't be the main punishment. The main punishment will be they'll find only a handful of creators willing to sign on. And this agreement only provides them benefit if creators sign on in droves. They have made a huge mistake by making an agreement that isn't mutually beneficial to both them and the creators. And the result will be nobody benefiting at all. When creators start publishing under ORC and not under OGL 1.1, then they will have to take notice and realize they've created something of bad value. And they can fix it or start looking for work elsewhere. You can only take your company's profits for so long. And I didn't write this down, but Cynthia Williams and Chris Cox, they probably have to go. As always, I am keeping an open mind, and I could change my mind after new information becomes available, or even after some time to reflect, or maybe even after your comments down below. But this is where I currently stand on this issue. So if you were curious, that's where I am. My intention is to continue to make D&D content, and I think people have the ability to be outraged with Wizards of the Coast and still play D&D. You don't have to support Hasbro to play D&D. You already have the books, you already have the dice, you have everything you need to play. And if you continue to be interested in content for D&D, I will be continuing to make that content. That doesn't mean I won't branch out into other systems. When the opportunity comes up, I will, but it has to be based on something that I feel I have something to contribute. Pathfinder 2, I just don't know enough right now. Maybe I will in the future. I'm playing a game right now, and I gotta tell you, you don't want to take my advice on how to build a first level wizard in Pathfinder 2. My character blows.